Let's move on to part 2 of my discussion. This is understanding the heritage-based education system. I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the heritage-based system, which has since been adopted by the government of Zimbabwe, is one of the best things that have ever happened to Africa. I'm not saying it's a perfect model of education. It has got its own shortcomings, but in a big way, it addresses the shortcomings that I have discussed earlier on. Why? Because earlier on, we were simply dealing with teaching, research, and community service, and we ended there. But the new model is taking us 2 steps ahead to innovation and industrialization. There is no better way of structuring an education system, particularly at a higher and tertiary level, than this one, because it then sets the motion and it creates the environment where educators and the learners themselves get prepared both psychologically and mentally for innovation and industrialization. Unlike where they've been condemned to managers and probably repairers of systems. I'm not saying managers are not playing any important role in our economies. No, they are. But we cannot, all of us, become managers and supervisors. We need scientific inventors. We need scientists of note. We need researchers who can apply the advanced roots of scientific knowledge. Now, so this particular program is really looking at these areas where we are looking at higher and tertiary policymakers, educators, these are the lecturers and professors, African young learners, higher and tertiary educational leaders, and higher and tertiary education stakeholders in broad. So what we have done from our end, and probably let me just give you this context, that when the STEM program, which you might have heard in Zimbabwe, came into being, I was the brainchild behind that. After my serious research on Singapore, I was also then involved in the issue of identification and designing the strategy for Zimbabwe to produce high-end skilled human capital. And that's how the STEM program came into existence. So currently we have then packaged a program that deals with that to capacitate our local institutions towards that. Now, here is the issue. You hear that we're talking about heritage-based. Yeah, it's a heritage-based system which is looking at the link between the heritage-based education system and biodiversity, for example. Biodiversity, you are looking at the total genetic constitution that a country has in terms of vegetation, in terms of animals, in terms of anything that is biological. The congregation of the genetic material constitutes the biodiversity in terms of the varieties which exist there. As we speak, Africa is arguably the largest biodiversity in the world. No, so if we do have quite a significant biodiversity in terms of flora, fauna, and others, and we are literally experiencing disasters coming from climate change, environmental damage, natural disasters, and the failure to manage climate change adaptation, which is quite rampant in other continents, and some of it exported to our own continent. we are losing our biodiversity. And that loss can create windows and avenues, highways to chronic health diseases. Some of the diseases are prevented now because we have got wide varieties of vegetables and plants. Some of them because we've got wide varieties of animals. If those ecosystems are destroyed, we run into some serious problems. Now, what is happening at the moment? There is a high cost of living, and that high cost of living means there's intense competition for natural resources. There is also a collapse in other value chain systems elsewhere, and they are having to resort to African resources. This is why you see most of people from other continents flocking to Africa, and it's not the vice versa. So these are our heritage. The issue is our education system should take us to a place where each one of us understands the importance and role of our heritage from a geographical and geopolitical perspective, from an environmental perspective, from a socio-economic perspective, and also to be able to create future-proof defenses against the challenges that are emerging. And at the same time, you also understand that there are next generation technologies which are kicking in. Unless we have a clear understanding of how these operate in terms of the future types of equipment, the future types of weapons which are going to be created, we might end up being the fodder of other people, both on land, at sea, in the cyberspace and outer space. If you look at Elon Musk now creating his own turf in the space for space tourism, where are we as Africans